Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. It is September 17th. I believe we have 20 days left. It's getting down to the wire now. And I started today with an emergency vet appointment. And I do want to do a recording for every day, but I'm a little jammed on time. So I'm going to do something different today, something I don't normally do. I'm going to actually share an article with you because I have a feeling a lot of people won't see it. And it's going to drive you insane. If you're like me, it's going to make you crazy. So I want to share this article with you. So it's not my own content today. Absolutely. It's not like I've written what I usually do is write up my blog post and then I talk it through. But I did not do that today. I'm going to take you into this article by John Miller, who's a contributor at US News and World Report. But the story itself is based on the experience of let's see, I'm sorry, of John Miller as he worked for the show The Apprentice. So if you're on social media, if you're on Twitter, you've seen Noel Casler comedy. Noel Casler is a man who worked on The Apprentice, and he has been speaking the truth for a long time about what really happened on the show, how things were packaged, that he spills a lot of tea. Let's be perfectly honest. It's Noel, Noel Casler, Cassler. If you want to go look at some of his tweets, he's also been interviewed. He's done the circuit. He had to be quiet for a while, but then his NDA, I think, expired or something. Anyway, he shares a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that happened to The Apprentice. That, he's the one that confirmed that Donald wears diapers and that he has an incontinence. Well, I don't know what you call the other kind, but he has a problem keeping it inside his body. So he wears Depends. That's or a reasonable facsimile, whatever rich people can afford. He wears that kind of thing. He's talked about Donald's drug use, that he's an Adderall junkie, which is interesting because he should be way skinnier if he's an Adderall junkie, but it could be he has such a high tolerance now. I don't know. You come out of those dance and disco days, his nightclub days, when all he was a playboy, and he has a high drug tolerance anyway. I guess that's Studio 54 cocaine stuff. That's way before my time. Weird boomers being boomers. But so what happened today is a man named John Miller decided to talk. He's the former chief marketer from NBC. And what he's actually owning today, which is far too late and far too little, but what he's owning today is he's saying that NBC has responsibility in creating a myth about Trump that a bunch of this nation bought into. Now, I never watched The Apprentice. There is nothing about The Apprentice that interested me. And I'm a businesswoman, but it's kind of like, I guess doctors probably don't watch doctor shows because it just was weird and it wasn't real and it was manufactured and all the things. Like, it was trying to teach things, but it didn't, because that's not how business works. It's not like so. It's not like that. So what Mr. Miller has done by owning his as this former chief marketer. So he wish I could do a job like that. He was a CMO too, but not anything like that, Silicon Valley. But what he did is he's regretting selling an illusion. I'm going to call it a myth because I think in TV, they're used to creating illusions. That's the whole nature of television, right? To take us to places we can't go or imaginary scenes and stuff. So that is all illusion. And I think illusion is a word that he's really comfortable with in a TV context. But in this case, I'm going to talk about a myth because myths are powerful. Myths are things that people use them every day. I'll mention one where there's this myth. There's a family that we're all friends with. You know how this works, right? You have kids. If you have kids, you end up being friends with people that you may not have ever found otherwise in the world. And one of my really good friends, like one person, I had to find her. It was destined. This is my destiny. Like, we're so similar. But we have other friends, and one of the families absolutely created a myth about their existence. The way they believed and the way they told stories about their family and how things happened for them, and it was powerful. Like, we would just be amazed. Like, this is actually not true. None of what this person says, this family says, honestly. And the kids kind of just fell into it because that's how the parents portrayed themselves, with this big mythology. And it became funny for the rest of us because we knew it was true, but sometimes we resented the mythology because it was getting them stuff, like they were getting benefits from it, like actually free things. Like, that's weird. That's just not I was gonna say it's not kosher. It's just not like, okay, go get what you can get. Like, I'm not that kind of person. I'm one of those people, like, if somebody's helping you, it's because you need it. That's very Midwestern, that kind of thing. Like, you don't ask for help until you need it. Then when you need it, you need it. So anyway, it's weird what this mythology. And so what they did at NBC is, well, Miller will talk about an illusion. They created this myth about Donald Trump, and it was vast and deep. And that's what I want to share with you on this, because you may miss this article. I'm not sure it's going to get covered everywhere. A lot of people already know it, but I think it's interesting, I guess, maybe because I'm a marketing person and I know my whole life has been about building messaging and building something out of nothing. I mean, if you think about tech, let's just take a minute. Me marketing tech, I always had to turn it into plain English. I always had to turn it into something people would care about. But someone said it's not that you can hold 10 megabytes of a Zune player, an MP3 player in your pocket. That's not what matters. 10 gigabytes doesn't matter. What matters is you have music in your pocket. That's what you sell. You sell music in your pocket. You don't sell 10 gigabytes of storage. Get the difference? So I've spent my whole life turning shit into Shinola, as they say. And so I think it's interesting to see and to hear about how they did this with a whole human being. And unfortunately, because of television and because people think what's on TV is real, which is right up there with, like, go look at the internet, that's real too. I mean, it's become it's television became much more powerful than fiction. That's probably what the real symptom here is, because people want to believe stuff that sounds grand and different and exciting and interesting. How do you think all these Nepo babies are running around? Nepo, wait, sorry, because I say Nepo. I don't know why I say Nepo. It's nepotism, right? Nepotism babies. Anyway, that whole category of rich influencers, not the poor ones who work their way up as content influencers, but as the rich influencers who are only just taking pictures of themselves and putting them on Instagram as they ran around the country. That's really what Trump was. But NBC made it so much worse. So here we go. I'm just going to read this. I will try to refrain from comment. If I step out of character and into comments, I'll say I have a comment or something, so it's not something that was written. And here we go. Mr. John Miller. I want to apologize to America. I helped create a monster. For nearly 25 years, I led marketing at NBC and NBC Universal. I led the team that marketed The Apprentice, the reality show that made Donald Trump a household name outside of New York City, where he was better known for overextending his empire and appearing in celebrity gossip columns. Okay, the editorial comment. This is really important for folks that don't know how this was. The reason New York hates Trump is he was a vile human in New York. He was one of those gross playboys, not the cool kind of playboys, the gross ones. And he doesn't work. I know people want to think he works, but he doesn't work. Not like we work. He doesn't produce, he doesn't produce goods. All those things he manufactured, they're from China. He doesn't produce goods. He doesn't produce value. But what he did is he built a brand. And then NBC said, hey, let me give your brand some juice. So, okay. So here we go. Despite his reputation in New York City, they went ahead. So now we continue. To sell the show, we created the narrative that Trump was a super successful businessman. I'm going to read this a little slower because this is the narrative. They created the narrative, right? They're writing a show. They created a character. We created the narrative that Trump was a super successful businessman who lived like royalty. Now that confirmed a lot of Trump's mythology. Trump had built that myth about himself with his ghastly, garish, there's not enough words for garish, apartment filled with gold toilets and other weird ass things that looks like your aunt's old furniture from 1945 with plastic on it. It's just the most god awful, ugly stuff you've ever seen. But that was Trump. He like, I'm gold and white, gold and white. In fact, he paints himself gold and white. Okay, so that's the thing. Okay, this is the difference. They cast him as someone that lived like royalty. All right, back to the story. That was the conceit of the show. At the very least, it was a substantial exaggeration. At worst, it created a false narrative by making Trump seem more successful than he was. Yeah. In fact, Trump declared bankruptcy 4 times before the show went into production. and at least twice during, oh, I'm sorry, and at least twice more during his 14 seasons hosting. Holy shit, he was on for 14 seasons? No wonder everybody knew him. That's a lot of seasons. That's a lot of seasons. I had no idea. Well, cheap ass programming. So that's what you get. It's super cheap to make these shows. All right. So he declared bankruptcy 4 times before the show went into production and 2 more times during those 14 years. That's 6 bankruptcies, people. That's a lot of bankruptcies. But, the show wasn't really focused on Trump's success in real life. It was focused on the show. I'm back to the article. The imposing boardroom where he famously fired contestants was a set because his real boardroom was old and shabby, too shabby for TV. Trump may have been the perfect choice to be the boss of this show because more successful CEOs were too busy to get involved in reality TV and didn't want to hire a random game show winners onto their executive teams. Do you understand what they're saying there? Real business people didn't want to play pretend business, and they didn't want to be obligated to hire a contestant who has been screened as an actor or whatever to come work for their real company. That's how fake it was. Real business didn't want any part of it. So, sorry. Back to the show, back to the article. Trump had no such concerns. He had plenty of time for filming. He loved the attention and it painted a positive picture of him that wasn't true. That's right. They now suddenly are superpowering the Trump brand. Trump has everything to gain by going in with NBC on this, right? He's just a playboy in New York with 6 bankruptcies so far and other criminal charges for illicit business things. But NBC's putting all the beautiful paint on it. It's going to look gorgeous. Let's go back to the article. At NBC, we promoted the show relentlessly. Thousands of 30-second promo spots that spread the fantasy of Trump's supposed business acumen were beamed over the airwaves to nearly every household in the country. The image of Trump we promoted was highly exaggerated. I know we can't get through the magazines, you guys, but here's the deal. The image of Trump we promoted was highly exaggerated. In its own way, it was fake news that we spread over America like a heavy snowstorm. I never imagined that picture we painted of Trump as a successful businessman would help catapult him to the White House. I believe you, sir. I believe you never believed it because I wouldn't have believed it. The man is empty soup. There's nothing inside. There's no soul. There's no heart. There's no nothing. So I can imagine that you never would have thought that would have happened. If anything, you would have just thought his brand would succeed, which it's fine, whatever. Go do that over there. I can ignore the Trump brand. But I used to be able to ignore the Trump brand sitting in my beautiful bubble in Santa Cruz. Back to the article. I discovered in my interactions with him over the years that he is manipulative, yet extraordinarily easy to manipulate. So this is Trump's game, right? By the way, the reason this is so exciting is that movie's coming out tomorrow. The Apprentice is coming out tomorrow. So that's another reason I wanted to cover this, because this is going to tear the hell off the mask off of Trump big time. And we'll find out really what a predator he is. So this idea of Mr. Miller finding him both manipulative, which I don't think Trump knows how to ask people to do things without manipulating them. Like, I think that's kind of his core being. But it was also extraordinarily easy to manipulate him. And we knew that because he just wants you to hug him and kiss him and call him pretty. All right, back to the other. Trump has an unfillable compliment hole. No amount is too much. Flatter him and he is compliant. World leaders, including apparently Russian strongman Vladimir Putin and North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, have discovered that too. I also found Trump remarkably thin-skinned. He aggressively goes after those who critique him and seek retribution. That's not very businesslike, and it's certainly not presidential. That's right. You don't just go like on a playground. You hit me, I'm going to hit you back. That stuff doesn't fly in the real world, not in the real business world. But again, we're going to see that in the movie, I think, and learn a lot more about that. Okay. Back to the article. He aggressively goes after those who critique him and seeks retribution. This week, Trump threatened to use the National Guard against Americans who oppose him, calling them the enemy from within. Because it was such a remarkably un-American thing to do, is to blame us for our country and say he's going to hunt us with the National Guard. So maybe that's why Mr. Miller decided to get on his ass. Probably he's releasing a book. I didn't even look yet. I'm sure this is taken from his, because don't we just get all the important news like 3 years later and too late? Oh, okay. I learned early on in my dealings with Trump that he thought he could simply say something over and over and eventually people would believe it. He would say to me, never take Trump, The Apprentice, America's #1 TV show. But it wasn't, not that week, not that season. I'd had the ratings in front of me. I'd seen and heard the ratings, but it didn't matter. He just kept saying it. It was the #1 show on television. Even after we corrected him, he repeated it on press tours too, knowing full well it was wrong. He didn't like being fact-checked back then either. Exaggerating ratings is one thing, but falsely spreading falsehoods about relief work of FEMA and about immigrants eating cats and dogs and about the deadly COVID pandemic and him winning the 2020 election or countless other lies are far more dangerous. So you get it. He's here in the juxtaposition of Trump would lie all the time around The Apprentice, but it didn't matter because Trump was impotent, right? There was nothing Trump could really do other than run around the set bloviating about his ratings. Nobody cared. They knew the truth, whatever. It was kind of non-toxic. But now this man is coming to terms with the fact that he put up with that kind of exaggeration, and now he's seeing it working on FEMA, on the immigrants eating cats and dogs, on COVID pandemic, on winning the 2020 election. Trump just lies. I mean, we all know this, but the lies are so consequential. That's really what it is, that these are very, very consequential lies and manipulations. Honestly, I believe a lot of it is manipulations. I think Trump actually thought he could manipulate Putin by sending the COVID tests there. Because there's always a transaction, right? So what did Trump get for giving those COVID machines to Putin? We don't know yet. We really don't know. All right, back to the article. I also learned from working with Trump that he has questionable judgment. Sorry. At the wrap party for The Apprentice season 3, he pitched an idea for the upcoming season. He told me we should make a team of black players competing against white players. Oh my God. I just can't even, I can't even imagine having that thought. Like, I know, let's set it up blacks against whites. It wouldn't even occur to me. We'll continue. Writer says, my first thought was, what the fuck? I tried to get through to him by speaking the language he understands, money. I explained that sponsors wouldn't want to be associated with a show that pitted races against each other. But he couldn't understand why this was such a bad idea. And no, we didn't use his idea. While we were successful in marketing The Apprentice, we also did irreparable harm by creating a false image of Trump as a successful leader. I deeply regret that. And I regret that it has taken me so long to go public. Books are hard. For them writing. Trump is facing a critical choice. Should this elderly would-be emperor with no clothes, who is well known for stretching and abandoning the truth, be president again? I spent 50 years successfully promoting television magic, making mountains out of molehills every day. But now I say to my fellow Americans without any promotional exaggeration, if you believe that Trump will be better for you or better for the country, that is an illusion. My word, but he says it's an illusion, much like The Apprentice was. Even if you are a born and bred Republican, as I was, I strongly urge you to vote for Kamala Harris. The country will be better off, and so will you. And I do not see anything on here about a vote. So this man took him a long time. He just retired, I believe. So I think that is probably what freed him up, because when you work for the board, you got to keep the board's secrets. But Knowles shared quite a few of them, and now John Miller has shared. And I think I wanted to bring it to you because I think a lot of people would miss this story because it's just small compared to everything else, but it's so important. And I think it's important to watch. We talked about it early in this podcast, I believe. There's something called the halo effect. And the halo effect is when you judge someone to be similar to someone else that you care or that you value. So you can also have the horns effect, right? Let's say like there's someone down the street that just reminds you of your niece. And I mean, just spot on, she's your niece. There's a probability behaviorally you're kind to that stranger because of the halo effect, because she reminds you of your niece. You already grant her a certain amount of grace for her existence because you gave her the halo effect. Well, one of the things that's unfortunate about television, and it's unfortunate about anybody who gets any kind of fame, is that halo effect is you can believe because they're associated with someone that they are also good. And it works a lot. I mean, there's a reason it's an important tool because it does actually help us. If you think of how much data we have to parse every day with our brains and the micro decisions we're making all the time about, am I talking to that person in the store? Or am I going to meet that person? We're going to negotiate our days. The halo effect is kind of an interesting adaptation we have to say, I think that person's okay because they seem familiar to me. The problem with the halo effect here is that they made Trump seem like he had a halo and that he was like other people. Like, let's compare him to a Mark Cuban, which is happening a lot right now. Same with Elon. I don't think you could compare Trump in a minute to Mark Cuban or Elon Musk, frankly. Both of those men have actually run companies. You can try to tell me that Trump has run Trump, whatever it's called, but there's no there there. It's a brand and it's a ton of money that he got from his dad. And then he did manage to parlay into other things. God, I don't even know if we'd ever see his tax returns, we might know what he's doing. But I suspect there's a lot of fraud and a lot of untruthiness. So this is why it's important to look at this. And as we roll into this movie tomorrow, I guess it comes out in theaters. I don't know. I don't really understand how people get paid anymore on movies. It confuses me because there's theaters, but I'm so anti-COVID and anti-noise. I don't usually go. So hopefully it's going to be streaming this weekend as well. But it's called The Apprentice, and it's going to be about Trump's relationship with Roy Cohn. And it's going to help us understand how a man who is pathologically not right hooked up with another man who is pathologically not right. And a fun fact for you. I just learned a fun fact and then I'll wrap it up. Did you know that one of the reasons, well, it's a hypothesis, so I cannot tell you it's a conclusion, it is a hypothesis, that people who become psychotic, so this is somebody who's really pathological, right? They've got a real problem. They had too much serotonin at birth. In fact, in utero too. Their brains were overexposed to serotonin, and that's why they can't feel calm and good. They have to recover. It's so interesting. They don't have feeling. That's what knocks out the feelings. When we say like sociopaths have no feelings, they got serotonin bombed in utero. I need to know a lot more about that, but I'm like, oh, tell me more. What the hell? This is fascinating. And if that's the case, then maybe there's some way we could start to treat these people who got serotonin bombs so they don't become pathological. Wouldn't that be interesting? And now you've been on the Jen Carroll election / true crime podcast. Just happened just right before my eyes. Doing that big crime, don't I? I'm right up. Thank you for listening today. I'll be back tomorrow with my content. I appreciate your indulgence today. I hope this opened your eyes to what NBC did and the thing to answer for cosmically, at least. I don't know if there's something in the universe that can make up for this, but please be aware, Trump is not who many people think he is. Thanks for listening. I'll be back tomorrow.